Hello and welcome back to the mayhem. All right, so in our last video what we did was we put all the electrical stuff together on the printer and got the printer basically in the enclosure and ready to go. So in this very last step, what we're going to do is we're going to do a pre-flight check, which all it takes is a zip tie to do the pre-flight check. And then we are going to update the printer software because we've gone from a MK2S to an MK2.5S, and it's got some different sensors on it, so it takes different software to run it. So we're going to go through and update that, and I'll show you all of the steps in the process, and then we'll run the wizard and it will check out the printer, make sure that everything's connected correctly, and hopefully, provided nothing smokes, we'll be able to start this printer up and actually print something by the end of the video. All right, so let's get to the mayhem. Alrighty, so here we are. We've got the printer. It's in the enclosure. Got the heat bed all on. Everything's all attached. So the only thing that we really have to do for the pre-flight is to make sure that our Pinda sensor, the sensor that's right here, is set to the correct level, because what it's going to do during its calibration is go around and pick up points on the bed, and you can see the little circles here on the bed. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take this all the way back. Okay, slide the printer forward a little bit. Okay, I'm going to take the printer all the way up, make sure that both of the carriages are up, and then we're going to go down with the printer. Easy. Okay, we don't want to like overdrive it because it's actually going to create current. Going back to the motors. And I don't want to short anything out. Okay, come on. So once we get close, we'll come down to touch. Okay, so we come down to touch. Now I'm going to take my zip tie. And what we want is a difference of a zip tie thickness between the nozzle and the Pinda probe. Okay, so I'm going to go in here. And I'm going to check it. And it's actually really close. I'm going to leave that. Yeah, I'm going to leave that. I normally don't get them that close. Normally what you have to do is you loosen up the screw that holds the Pinda in, and then you can push it down, or you can just turn it a little bit and the threads on the Pinda will actually make it go down further. But because we're so close on this one, I'm not going to do that. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the laptop, hook the laptop up to the port, put power on the printer, and then go ahead and update the software. So I'll show what that looks like here in just a minute. So we're about to put power on the printer and we'll see what happens. I haven't plugged it in yet, so this is going to be a live test. So there's power. Flip the switch. And I've got an information screen. Okay, so I've got the information screen. Now the thing is that it says that is Prusa i3 MK2. All right, this is not the correct version of printer. It's an MK2.5S, but we'll get to that in a couple of minutes. One of the things that we can note though is that we are getting feedback from the thermistor for the hot end. That's the one on the top. It's reading 30 degrees C, and then the one on the heat bed is also reading 30 degrees C. If those weren't connected up, then you wouldn't be getting anything on your temperature. Okay, So what we're going to do now is we're going to grab the laptop and connect up to the printer with the software and do the software load, which is pretty easy. All right. Alrighty. So what I have done is I've connected a USB cable to the port on the Rambo board. It's right there in the back. And then what I'm going to show you guys here is that, and I'm not sure how well it'll show up, but I've downloaded the hex file for the firmware. I've downloaded it here and I've put it on the desktop in a folder called Prusa firmware. And this is the MK25S firmware. It's a fresh download with a Rambo. And it says 13A ENCZ. The EN and CZ are the language. So it's English and probably Czech. So not a big deal. All right, so I've got that there. I'm going to go to the software, which is Prusa Slicer. I've got the USB cable hooked up to the laptop here. So I'll open the Prusa Slicer program, which this was a, it was quite a bit of a different process. They've come a long way with their software. But this is what their software looks like. It's going to come up and that's just a regular build plate. Now this is the first time I've used this version. So it's going to want to go through a configuration wizard because I haven't used it on this computer yet. So I'm going to come here just like I got a brand new printer and I'm setting it up and I'm going to say, okay, alrighty. We are going to tell it which printers we want in the software. Okay, so I want an MK3S because I've got a 3S here with a 0.04 nozzle. And then I want an MK 2.5S with a 0.4 nozzle. Okay. These other ones are multi-material. Okay. So basically I have two types of printers and that's what I want to run. This was what this printer was before, which is the MK2S. So once I've got those selections, then I'll go finish. Now it'll have the settings for the MK3S and then the filament. Now what I'm going to want to do is go up here to configuration, and in configuration it says flash printer firmware. So we're going to do a flash printer firmware. It's going to want to know where the firmware image is. That's that hex file that I downloaded. Okay, you go here to browse. Remember, I put it on the desktop. So if I look on the desktop in Prusa firmware, I select it, open. Okay, now it's already read the i3 MK2 on the port. Okay, and that's it. All right, and it's ready to go. I'll turn on the advanced log. Okay, then tell it to flash. Now it's flashing. So now it's going to be communicating with the printer, and we should see a little bit of activity there. Maybe, maybe not, but it is writing it. Alright, it says flashing succeeded. You can see that it just rebooted, and now it says Prusa i3 MK 2.5S. Alright, so now we're done with that. We'll hit close. We'll close out of our software. We don't need that anymore. I'm going to unplug my cables. Unplug this cable. Okay. I'll set this stuff off to the side. And we'll go right into the wizard. Okay. So here we are. I'm going to go right to my menu and tell it that I want to do calibration wizard, and it'll delete all the calibration settings, which is fine. We'll start from the beginning. So we click yes. Okay. Yes. Now it's going to run the self-test. Okay. It's going to turn on the fans, so we'll watch the fans turn on and make sure that they read. It'll turn on the extruder, make sure that that comes up to temp. Turns on the bed, make sure that comes up to temp. We'll see all of this stuff. So, extruder fan is on. That's it. Printer fan is good. So it asks me if it's spinning. I say yes, it's spinning. So that means that's good. Now it's going to check the x-axis. Comes over. Now it's going to look for that limit switch. Okay, that's the x-axis. Now the z. Now it's going to go for the z. It's going to take the z all the way down to the bed until the Pinda probe reads. Now it's going to check the hot end. So it actually came down and hit the bed a little bit harder than I wanted it to. We'll see how it does. So I can see the light in the back come on, so I know the bed's heating up. I can feel that it's getting warm, so that's goodness. Okay, the bed temperature is good. Now it's going to turn on the hot end. So that's saying it's all good. It's all correct. Alrighty. Let's see what the next step is. Alright, now it's going to run XYZ calibration. It takes about 12 minutes to run. Okay. So rotate the knob, move the Z carriage up to the end, and click when done. So we're going to move it all the way up. Okay, so it's all the way up. See, carriage is all the way up, yes. Clean the nozzle. Nozzle's clean. Is a steel sheet on the heat bed? No, it's no steel sheet. Alright, now it wants us to place a sheet of paper up underneath the nozzle during the calibration. Alright. So let me see if I can find a loose piece of paper over here. So I'll use a piece of paper that I have laying around here for some reason on the desk. I'll put it here. Alright, now what it wants us to do is if the nozzle scrubs, turn the printer off and recheck some things, which would basically be the Z probe. All right. Finally got past the first point. That was a lot. Is it done? Is it done? Come on. Please place steel sheet on heat bed. Nice. Alrighty, so we'll place the steel sheet on the heat bed. I'm gonna go ahead and clean it up. So when we put this on, we make sure that we index it against these little nubs back here. Make sure that it's kind of nice and centered up on the back and on the front. Okay, I'm gonna take my isopropyl alcohol because I got my fingerprints all over it here. Spray her down. Wipe her down. A lot of times this is all you'll need to get the print surface really nice and clean. So I place a steel sheet on the bed. That's the nozzle. Now it's going to measure reference height calibration point 1 through 9. So now it's going to calibrate to a 9-point calibration. XYZ calibration, all right. Skew will be corrected automatically. Okay, so apparently it's got a little bit of a skew. Even though we took our time and put everything together and micrometer everything, apparently it does still have a skew, so it's going to automatically correct the skew. Okay, is filament loaded? No. So select nozzle preheat temperature that matches the material. So I'm going to select ABS, because that's what we have. So now it's going to preheat the nozzle. Okay, and then we wait. We wait on the nozzle to come up to 255. Okay, so now it's up to temperature. Please insert filament into the extruder, then press the knob to load it. Okay, so here we go. Filament. Let's try it again. Here we go. It's going in there now. Let's see it start to come out in a string here in a second. You can see the old filament that was already in there. It's coming out. We're going to keep running it until it runs red. Usually when you're running black filament, it takes about 3 runs of this to get it purged. Okay, so that's that. Now I'm going to take and do what the first layer calibration. So I'll get you guys in here so you can see what this looks like. Okay. we're going to do a calibration, first layer cal of ABS. Okay. So we can see that we're coming up to temperature. It's set temperature. It's going to wait for the temperature to even out. Then it's going to zero all the axes. Now it's going to run the bed calibration for leveling. There's specific G code for this every time that it runs. Now it's going to do a purge line. I need to bring that way down so you can see that. It needs to come way down. Getting close there. Okay, I'm going to leave it right there. I'm at negative 1.325. So now it's going to do a block back and forth. We're going to check the smoothness. We're going to check and see how it feels, and then we'll go from there. So we just keep doing this process over and over again until we're done and we're happy with the results. Okay. Now if you look really carefully, you can see it's pretty smooth. Might need a little bit of adjustment, but honestly it's not bad. So you can see kind of how it started, where it wasn't really down onto the build plate. There and there. There it started to get a little bit better, then it starts to stick. It's all about sticking. Okay, and then it's better, and you can kind of see how we're going along, and I'm just lowering it. You can see these corners get sharper. Then here you can see it really start to level out and kind of get flat and kind of get some squish to it. And then here you can see some details of the squish and see how it actually connects together. All right, so that was the Preflight. I'm going to wait for that to cool off. I'm going to clean the print bed up, and then I'm going to download a sample image or a sample file, and then we will let it print and see how it prints. And if we need to make any adjustments to the printer, we can make them then. And then I think that that's pretty much it. I'll store that sheet for the setting. So there's a certain setting that I can store that's that sheet serial number. So if you look at one of my other sheets here, this is a textured sheet. It has a serial number right here. So I'll put that serial number into the printer, and then each sheet will have its own sort of calibration. Okay, that's pretty much it. That's this mayhem. And this is going to be the end of this series. So I hope that you guys have enjoyed the 3D printer build series. I know it's quite long and drawn out, lots of detail, but one of the goals that I wanted to have for the series was to show you guys the intricacies of this whole 3D printing thing. It's quite rewarding, when you've got a printer that you can just turn on and have it print something like this. You know, this has been printing since this morning, and it'll continue to print for another 17 hours. But yeah, I can just go and download a design and have it work, and yeah, it's pretty awesome. But anything worth doing, anything really rewarding worth doing is sometimes it's a bit difficult. So this is difficult. It's very rewarding once it's done. But yeah, just keep in mind that if you want to get into this stuff, you know, I like to pay for quality, and the Prusa printer is, you know, top notch. I mean, the bed leveling, yeah, it takes a little bit of time to do it, but once you get it done, it's done, and then you just set it up and print. So anyway, like the video. If you like it, make sure you subscribe. We've got some more content coming out, some more automotive content, some motorcycle content. So you guys just, you know, hang on for the ride, and hang on for the mayhem. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, have a great day. Going into the extruder, let's see here. You can see here, pressing the nub. Okay, that's not supposed to happen like that. So something's not happy with that whole thing. Still trying to feed it in. So I'm going to tell it that it's yes. I'm going to reset. And hopefully this doesn't mess everything up. Until it, don't want to run through the setup process. Okay. It's not yet been set. Okay, now what I want to do is unload the filament. I'm going to take this over and I'm going to loosen that little screw up. Okay. Okay, so it's unloaded.